Stirling Moss, welcome to CNBC TV18 Overdrive and welcome
Thank
to
you.
India. This is the first time that you're judging the Indian Concourse, the Elegance,
It's the first time I've done it here.
in India.
Yeah, it is. I've done it else places, but not in India.
Out of the ones that you've seen over here, which one would be your favorite, or which one would you like to take out for a spin?
Oh, there are two or three actually. There's an older Fiat which I'd really like to have a go in. I mean, it's a big brute of a car, and then there's the little ones. Actually, there's a good selection here. Very nice cars.
What do you think keeps the charm of, these vintage cars alive?
Oh, you only have to look at them. I mean, these cars have got such romance about them. What they've been, how long they've been around, what they look like, and if you drive them, they all have a character of their own. The older the car, the more character they have. Really, I'm not going to say they're better. They're quite often worse, but nevertheless, it's still interesting.
I can't ignore the fact that I'm sitting right in front of one of the greatest Formula One drivers of all time.
Thank you.
And you've been a source of inspiration to a lot of race drivers and aspiring race drivers. So what I'd like to know is, when you were growing up, who was your source of inspiration?
I think probably the reason I went into motor racing was Prince Bera, who was a Thai prince, and he went round Europe before the war this was, and had a fantastic life, and I read the books about him and I thought, boy, that sounds really interesting, and I think that's probably the way I got into it.
What intrigues me is that you're not just known as a Formula One race driver, you also were rallying in your days, you were doing both of them at the same time. How is it that you excelled at both of them?
Well, I mean, I was racing every week. I was doing 50 races a year or more, and the life of a racing driver was fantastic. I can't tell you. I mean, in my day, I mean, for instance, if Lewis Hamilton wins a race now, he has to go and speak to Vodafone. If I won a race, I'd go chasing the pretty girls. So I can show you earlier is much better.
Just like you said, there are a lot of challenges that the drivers have today. Like, it's not just the sponsors, but it's also technologically advanced.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of changes. So if you see, the steering wheel is not just a normal steering wheel anymore. The Formula One cars have like 12 buttons on the steering wheel, and they have to concentrate on them all. So do you think that takes away from the race driver, as he has to concentrate on so many things rather than just the race?
Oh no, I think that's an interesting challenge, but nevertheless, I'm glad I didn't have it, frankly. I mean, when I was racing, unfortunately, we didn't have communication with the pits, which would have been nice and interesting, but I think now a driver's life now is completely different. I mean, the amount of money they receive, which from my point of view wouldn't be a terribly important thing, but the life that I led was so much more fun, so much more exciting, and you were left to do what you wanted to do. Terrific.
But don't you think that you were free to race? Like, you probably strategized with your team before.
Yeah.
But during the race, that was it. You were left on your own to just go out there and win.
Yes, but if you're an intelligent racing driver, you know how much tire you've got, and you know when you're abusing it and all that sort of stuff. I mean, they sometimes give the driver more information than he needs because he's not stupid. To drive really fast in some of these cars, you have to be fairly smart, and it's a passion.
You also raced against some of the most famous names, Juan Manuel Fangio, Jack Brabham, Phil Hill. Who amongst these drivers was that one person you wanted to beat at all cost?
Oh, in Formula One, certainly Fangio. I mean, in my mind, he was at my era the best world driver in the world, and then later on, of course, Senna. But he's a lovely man. I drove with him and against him at Mercedes and in other teams as well, and he was a tremendous driver as well.
What is it about Senna that you liked so much?
Well, what I liked about Senna was he was a real competitor. He's not going to sort of sit back. He'll really have a go, and the tragedy really is he was killed because of safety. They pushed the Armco barrier, instead of leaving it on the side of the road where he would have glanced off it, they pushed it back for safety, and so he hit it head on. And of course that killed him, and which is really tragic.
Motorsport overall, motor racing is very a dangerous sport, but in your time it was a lot more dangerous, and now safety measures have been upped quite a bit. So do you think that the race drivers get into the sport thinking, you know what, it's just a sport, it's not my life I'm risking out there?
Then they should take up something else, play cricket. You know, if it gets too hot in the kitchen, you leave the kitchen, don't you? And motor racing, I mean, to me, when I started, one of the main things about it was dangerous. When you're 17, 18 years old, to take part in something where it's really dangerous is the thing you like. You know, you don't run for it. If you do run away, then you must choose another sport.
But would you want to race in this era? Would you,
No.
if you had a choice?
No, I wouldn't want to race. I mean, yes, if I could do it, I'd like to be out there. But no, nothing like the pleasure, the exhilaration, or the danger that we had when I was racing. And those were the things that I was searching for. And this certainly, gave me what I wanted.
Getting to modern day Formula One, we have 5 world champions on the grid right now. Who do you think is promising enough?
It's a very fast moving sport. And at the moment, of course, we've got Vettel and Alonso and other drivers, obviously Lewis Hamilton's, and they're all trying. And only small things make a big difference. And their tactics, the way they think. I mean, old Jenson Button, when the going gets tough, he's a good person to think about because he thinks outside, and that's one of the things that makes motor racing very interesting. Vettel, I think I would choose because Vettel, is very young. He's won three titles, but apart from that, Adrian Newey does the car, and he is the equivalent of a really first-class racer, although it's in his design because he's designed so many winning cars. So I think that he would have to start favourite actually.
Formula One today is not just about the driver, right? Has it become more of a the designer's game rather than a driver's sport?
Well, I think the driver contributions to success. I think he's certainly as talented as any driver at any time, but the driver contributions to success is being reduced because the cars are being made so similar and so good. I mean, in my era, I think, and fans' years, I think we probably contributed 15 or even 20% towards the success of the vehicle. I think a driver with the same ability now would probably only do 4 or 5%. Not because they haven't got the ability, but because the cars are obviously that much better.
My final question to you is, what do you make of Mercedes' return to Formula One? Do you think it was a good idea?
I think so, personally. I mean, I race for Mercedes, and I know they were the greatest team. I can't tell you how great the team were. I mean, it only happens once. I remember Monaco, we got some paper in the radiator intake, and of course the car was overheated. Next race, if paper got in the radiator intake, I pulled a lever like that, and it lifted up and throw it back. All you had to do was make sure it didn't get you in the face. But I mean, these sort of things happened. And we had locking brakes, and so you had 4 buttons. If that wheel's locking, you just push it, and it puts a little bit of oil in, which reduces the benefit of the brake, admittedly, but it's obviously better than locking a wheel. So I mean, they were certainly at that time, and I'm talking 55, certainly were the people to beat. Now, I don't know. Now, I mean, Lewis has gone there, and he's very, very good. And we'll have to wait and see.
You won't want to comment on what you think, whether Lewis made the right decision moving?
I can see why he went there, let me put it that way. Now, the point is, there are lots of things you need to know. For instance, some drivers are allowed to take in the money they get from the adverts on their body. Some they're not allowed to. So therefore, you've got to consider that. That goes into millions of pounds. So obviously you've got to need to know that, then you need to know his position in the team. I mean, when I was racing, I would sign up for a team, and if I was sufficiently senior, I would insist on being the #1 driver. And if my car broke, I'd take over somebody else's, which you can't do today, but you could then. So you need to know an awful lot more than you and I do know at this moment.
So Stirling Moss, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.